Well, good evening, good evening. It's been a beautiful day in Jacksonville, Florida. A very profitable day for many, I'm sure. And I'm so thankful that you joined us on your way home today here on Rejoice904.com. We're so excited about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about this book I got in the mail Sunday, Hidden in Plain Sight. And I'm excited because I started reading it, and I think I read all day Monday. I had a couple things to do, but in between, I just read. And so today we're going to start talking about some of the things that are here in Hidden Plain Sight. And I'm happy that we have the three authors on the line with us today. We have Dr. Craig Bythewood, we have Tasha M. Dyer, and we have Gerald D. Rogers. They all co-authored this book together, and it's a tremendous book. And it really inspires us to learn the trade. And also, it's a lot of interpersonal information in here that helps us just with life in general. And as we talk to people from day to day, we are able to, if we take these things and apply them, we have stronger relationships on our jobs, at our business, and even in our family life. And so we're thankful for the great job you guys did. Ms. Dyer, how are you this evening?
Hello, Bishop. I am wonderful this evening. Hello, everyone out there in our listening audience. Hello to the new Rejoice 904. Hello on Facebook. And yes, I'm excited to be here. And also, as you are logging on and you're tuning in with us, make sure you share this. You want to share this broadcast. 1 million families financially educated and impacted. But I'm excited because, yes, we're talking about the book. We're talking about Be Your Own Bank, Hidden in Plain Sight. So that is what we're discussing today. So I'm just excited. So once again, Bishop, just hello. Great to see you here today. And just everyone in our listening audience. I just want to say, have good evening.
Well, Dr. Bythewood, are you with us today? Or should I say Coach Bythewood? How are you today?
And I would like to greet our listeners. It's always a pleasure to be with individuals discussing this important.
Having some technical difficulties, but
Mr. Rogers, say hello.
Hey, Facebook family, Rejoice904.com network. Once again, we're absolutely excited to be able to bring this amazing segment. Once again, I want to definitely give kudos to our host, the wonderful General in the Guys Army, Bishop Harold Rollison, business extraordinaire, ministry leader extraordinaire. And once again, I'm just tremendously grateful for your insight, your heart and passion for people, making sure they become economically empowered. Once again, I salute you, and obviously to our other guest co-host, Ms. Tasha M. Dyer, the trade whisperer, changing the world with this amazing strategy, teaching people how to be their own bank, and also Dr. Bythewood. But hey, Facebook fans, if you're watching us right now, I need you to do me a huge favor. I need you to share this to your page, tag a friend, tag a relative, tag a neighbor, and even tag an enemy, because they need to be their own bank as well. So we're excited about this broadcast, and I too have my copy of make sure I got it up right. Be Your Own Bank, Hidden in Plain Sight. So we're excited, and you got to get this copy. You got to get you a copy because it's life-changing. 1 million families financially educated and impacted. I mean, this is the largest economic empowerment movement in the history of mankind, and we're now ready to include you now. My copy of make sure I got it.
All right. I'm trying to share. I'm doing what you're saying. Share. I'm thankful. Today we want to talk about the subconscious mindset and your quest. This is chapter 2, page 17 of the book Hidden in Plain Sight. And it was a good read, and I'm just excited be able to talk about it today. And you know, when I read these books, you know, I'm a theologian at heart, so I try to put scripture because I want what we say to be in line with what God says, and this is certainly in line what God says, and we're so excited. Proverbs 23 and verse 7, I believe it is, it says from the Old King James Version, and so as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, when the psalmist talks about the heart, he's not talking about that thing that goes beat, could be beating the blood, but he's talking about the innermost consciousness of the individual. That's what's deep on the inside of us. That's what's been impressed on us in a deep sense. And so he says that manifestation of what's on the inside of you is as Jesus says, not what goes in a man that defiles a man, but that which comes out of his heart. And so we want to look at today what is happening on our inner conscious and how that impacts our ability to perform. Oftentimes we find ourselves, and that's what's on the inside of us comes up in an unexpected way. So we want to be able to talk about that today. And I think you guys did a great job today dealing with that in chapter 2. And because these guys are my friends, I try to figure out who's the thrust of this thought. And so I'm just going to give all of them credit for it and say that this came from all of them because they spend so much time together, they travel together, they united in their thoughts and circumstances. So we're excited about what's going on. And so in chapter 2 and verse, excuse me, and on page 17 is where it started. We began to talk about why we think the way we think and how we move. And we talked about, we're hitchhiking on chapter 1, where we talked about the different mindsets and the mindsets that I believe it's the 5 mindsets that and how they connect with what's going on in our inner conscious. And someone began to talk about the neuro-linguistic programming that happens on the inside of us. Dr. Bytewood, are you connected?
Yes, sir. Yes, I am.
You want to help old country boy with that neuro-linguistic programming?
I certainly can. And so I am absolutely an expert on that first word because 11 years ago, I had brain surgery and I had a neurosurgeon. So neuro is simply a Latin word, which means brain. So it is simply talking about this conscious mind that we use to think. And linguistic is simply a fancy way of saying language. So all we're doing is using a particular language, speaking to the brain, and doing it in a way where we create a program. So what's a program? A program is just something that we keep thinking over and over and over and over until it becomes programmed in our subconscious. So literally neuro-linguistic programming sounds fancy, but it only means that we want to be deliberate about what we say, because what we say creates a program in our brain. So the concept of neuro-linguistic programming is simply a way to be very effective in the way in which we use words to plant seeds into our brain, something we're doing anyway, but science has created this fancy term that literally makes it a science. Neuro-linguistic programming. How can we use our language to program our brain to do what it is that God desires of us?
You know, when I read that, I thought about when Peter says we are living epistles read of men, and how this impacts our children who read us every day, and the impression that we make on our children, and how that impact puts desires and so that puts a format on the behavior of those that are around us, especially as when we were children. You know, they say girls try to marry their daddies, boys try to marry their mothers, and this is a mama's boy club, right? I'm a mama's boy. Gerald's a mama's boy. Dr. Mike Wood is a mama's boy. So this is pretty much a mama's boy club here. And so, you know, that's what we look for because of the impression that's been made on us. I know in my counseling, when I'm counseling with couples before they get married, we talk about unspoken expectations. The expectations, and often people get angry with each other because these expectations that are deep on the inside of us never come up on a date, never come up when they're talking, because somehow we think that everybody should already know that. I had this one young lady, she wanted to leave her husband because he took the car to the shop. And she said, oh, he's wasting money. My daddy always fixed the car at home. And so, you know, she thought a real man know how to work on a car. And so myself and many of my friends, we wouldn't be real men because we don't know that much about working on cars. But she thought that was normal, and that was an expectation that she had that was never spoken. And so we get these expectations of behavior from watching others, and our children get the same expectation from watching us. Somewhere in the book, you guys talked about setting a paradigm, and the paradigm that we grew up with is different from the paradigm that our children are now growing up with. I can remember my parents saying that they were always told that they had to work twice as hard to get what the other folk are getting. And then when we came up, they said, well, you go get yourself a degree and you should be able to make it. And so now our children are watching us, those of us who own our own businesses, they're watching us. And my girls are having a hard time working with other people because they saw me all the time running different businesses. And so how does that impact what is being said in the book? What are you saying about the impressions and the impact of the imprint that is made on our minds and the subconscious and our behaviors?
Well, Bishop, what I honestly believe is that the beliefs and the thoughts is like you have to be exposed to something, right? You have to be exposed to something different. The same way your girls have a hard time working for someone else because they've been exposed to a different lifestyle. You don't know what you don't know. If I don't know it's out there, if I don't know that I can do it, if I was told that this is what I need to do in order to make it or obtain wealth, then I mean, those are the types of things that we always do. You know, just like I was told that, you know, we all have that foundation of go to school, get good grades, go to college and get you one of those good jobs. But it's all about what you're getting exposed to. So I've learned and over time, it's just when you know better, you do better. But the biggest thing is you have to have an open mind. And I think, you know, just listening, you know, thinking about what Dr. Bytewood just stated, thinking about what we talk about in the book. And I mean, you're right, because there, as far as we spend so much time together, our thoughts are correct, because there are so many times that I'll have a topic or I'll begin to talk about something. Dr. Byte would have mentioned it. He'll talk about it. Mr. Rogers will talk about it, you know, so our thoughts are intertwined like that. But what I'm getting at is the fact that when you're exposed to something, you have to be willing to accept. You have to be willing to understand that your viewpoint might not be the only viewpoint, because your view is based on your exposure. And so when you think about reprogramming your mind, it's all about being able to be open and taking responsibility for your actions, for your life, and for those things. So if you think about it, just like you mentioned your girls, my daughter, you know, she can't work for anyone else. It's very painful. She left what most people would call a good paying job. She left that to create her own. And when I look at the fact that because she did that, because she shifted and was open, because I teach them to be open and accepted, she just came off of a week vacation in Tahiti. And so, and she wouldn't have done that on a 9 to 5. She wouldn't have been able to just take off and do those things. And I look at the fact that the view is being shifted, where my son is trading. We sit down and we look at the charts, and he's creating his own. It's very painful for him to think about working. And my youngest daughter, she actually, every day she walks in here and gets on a computer and says, let me see what these charts look like today. And that's every single day. And she's 6. I mean, and that's what she does. So that viewpoint is changing and they're able to absorb it. But yeah, at 6 years old, I mean, her view is different. And you have adults, because they won't change their view, they won't accept things that are outside of their norm, they won't look at it. But yet a 6-year-old can analyze a chart.
Wow. Wow.
I think one of the things too that many of us have been victim of is what we call the principle of first truth. And in most instances, our programming, we're all being programmed. It's just what type of programming are we receiving? So we have our family structures, our last name and what we've been known for. And then we also have the mass media always trying to create these particular images that becomes a part of our subconscious mind. But Romans 12:2 says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So as we always have to be open to the fact that that principle of first truth is we accept it to be true because of the individuals that share with us. In most cases, it was our mothers, our fathers, our uncles, our grandmothers. And at that time, they only knew what they knew. So we have to find ourselves in the state of perpetual evolution, evolving and always looking to become and be what we were designed to be. So this movement is something that we have to be able to now to take, a strong stance in and recalibrate the subconscious mind, because the way the mind works, it cannot distinguish between what's real and not real. So whatever images that are perpetual, whatever images, words that we find ourselves in the space of, then we're going to emulate the environment. I mean, I think about one of my favorite movies growing up was the movie Trading Places. And for those who may not be familiar with that, Eddie Murphy was a guy, but he got exposed, and Ms. Dyer just made mention about exposure. And he was the same gentleman that changed his environment. And after his environment was changed, he became open, and the programming, he ended up becoming very successful financially. And that's what I'm so passionate about, because our total NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, was always centered around us working for money, but there was no conversations held in our households to ensure and teach us how to make sure our money was working for us. And there's a distinct reason why, no matter what continent we share this information, obviously we got an international listening audience, but 5% of the population always has and always will control 95% of the wealth. So the education is important, but the programming is even more paramount. So that's why we're thankful and grateful that we have this opportunity now to reload, to have everyone run a virus scan, on our minds. And now we're going to trust that, as you said in the very beginning, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we're going to put this financial programming on the minds and the hearts of the people that we care about the most.
Hey, amen. And so you said we talked about readjusting our thought patterns and what our understanding about certain institutions that we have. We talk about becoming the bank, and so when our children go to the bank with us, our local bank with us, they won't think the same way about a bank that we grew up thinking about a bank. Perhaps when they think about a bank, they'll think more about an ATM card. Or, when I used to go to the bank with my granddaddy, he had a little book that they would stamp and put what was in his savings account in that book. And if he would lose that book, boy, he'd turn the whole house upside down, because that book told him what was in his savings account. But we don't think about banks like that any longer. We think about the change of current currency is going to be different some years from now than what we grew up with. The Bitcoin, it's gotten some bad reviews in our neighborhood, because there are folk who were ahead in that game, came through our community and sold people what we thought were Bitcoins, and didn't turn out to be that way. Some folk are still trying to cash in on the contracts they made with people. And so what has to happen in our community to get past that that rough bump in the road concerning Bitcoin in our community?
Education, education, and stop trying to take shortcuts. That's the biggest thing, because when we think about the foundation that was laid, it was an education. Education is our foundation. And so when you understand that education is key, but it's always about what you're being educated upon. We'll push college on someone from the age of 5. We'll push that. And I just made reference of my daughter. And I can remember when she literally told me, while we were picking out her dorm room, she told me, Mom, if I go to college, I will waste your money. And we have to understand that that might not have been her journey at that moment, but she came back and got a degree, but she had a life plan and she educated herself along the way. So now you're talking about being exposed to something because we didn't have the proper education. And so that's why we're so adamant about sharing this information. That's why we're so adamant, because that shift has to happen. And everything is not skeptical, because like you said, and what Mr. Rogers just made reference to, is, you know, who shared the information with you. So because my parents didn't know about it, or because they didn't, that first truth, then we question it, we second guess it, right? Those are the things that actually happen. Those are the things that transpire. But when you actually get educated on something, and so this is the evolution of currency. And when you think that I can go get a job at a bank right now, and the bank is actually trading your money. This is what the bank does with your money. So it's not a scam. It's not skeptical. It's not any of that. Because if I can go work at a bank and a bank is trading my money, then that's something I need to also understand. And in our government, while most Americans were waiting on that stimulus check for $1,200, there was an HR bill attached to that for our government to be able to create cryptocurrency. And this is happening all around the world. This is not just happening right here. This is not just happening in our neighborhood. So if we're not willing to open our minds and understand that we have to see things from the viewpoint of the big picture and not a day-to-day picture, then that you'll miss the mark and you'll miss the movement. So it's because it's happening all around us. And that's why even this broadcast hidden in plain sight. So it's something you have to do. It's not a should do, not a I can do. It's something that you really must do, because this evolution is here.
It's here, and it's a reality, and you have to adjust. You know, I had to adjust to the idea of an ATM card and shopping online and putting all your information in the computer. That took an adjustment for some, and it's here. It's upon us, and best thing we can do is learn and put ourselves in a position to learn and understand the change that's taking place in our society. Because if we're going to be a part of it, then we don't want to be left behind. And unfortunately, in some communities, we always the ones that are left behind.
But the reality though is, you know, we're mentioning the word cryptocurrency, and then some people refer to it as digital currency. But, you know, quite honestly, we've been operating in the digital currency space for many years now. I mean, when you mention your ATM card, and, you know, all of that stuff is electronic. Everything has been electronic. But what now we're in a position to do is capture the economic overflow of something that we've already been participating in. And I know when we talk about cryptocurrency, it's actually the technology behind it through blockchain technology, which actually puts us in the best position where we cannot be money can be manipulated or things of that nature. But, you know, why many of us, we missed the telecom boom when there were the big three. When now we now have what we're doing right now. We are actually speaking via a Zoom technology. Many of us missed the internet boom, but the largest industry in the entire universe is always centered around money. And we now find ourselves with the foreign exchange market and including the metamorphosis of the cryptocurrency market. That allows you and I, our families, our friends, our neighbors, our relatives, our listening audience to participate in an industry that generates nearly $11 trillion every day. So there's a tremendous incentive for individuals who are listening, if you have a relationship with your personal financial institution, to educate yourself and be a part of the perpetual evolution, because it has already happened. We now have the opportunity to cut people in on the slice of the pie. As much as the pies they choose to participate in, it's readily available.
You can't resist the Borg. You got to come be a part of it. I was,
Yeah.
you know, I got a bad habit of giving money to people on the street. And today when I went to lunch, you know, my office is downtown here, and I didn't have a whole lot of cash in my pocket. So I used to give $1 to people. I don't pull out big wad of money for anybody. And I told the guy, I said, I'm gonna give you this $1, but next time you need to have a cash app. He looked at me. I said, I'm gonna give you some money. You need to get yourself a cash app, because people don't have cash anymore. You do a lot better. And so he said he's gonna go and try to get him one. So I mean, you know, that's just technology. Even the homeless guys got to come up to par when it comes to this technology. Now the spirit of sabotage is the next topic that you guys address in this chapter. The spirit of sabotage, where people are put in position, and like you said, information is given to us, but it's something within us that won't allow us to take advantage of it. There are those who recognize that change is happening all around the world. Everything is going to begin to operate differently. Cars are no longer going to be using gas in a few years. Everybody's going to have an electric car pretty soon. But yet there are those who want try to get ahead of the wave and take advantage of the opportunities that change brings. And so I call that the spirit of sabotage. We self-sabotage ourselves. There's something that is, I think it's just sometimes generational, that we learn that behavior is deep in our subconscious, that I'm not supposed to be successful. People have placed limit on us. Some people don't tell their children how pretty they are, how smart they are. We tell them they're dumb, they're stupid. You know, they say those kind of things to them. Those limits in our subconscious. They feel like they're out of place. They're not supposed to be in certain places. They're not supposed to have certain nice things that's supposed to be for somebody else. And so rather than embracing the opportunity to have those nice things and be in those nice places, we do something crazy to get away from that, to escape that possibility. Is that what you were saying in this book?
That is exactly what we were saying in this book. And let me go a little bit deeper on that great point you're making, Bishop. So the topic that we just finished breaking down was the contract that we established with Bitcoin. But sometimes we have to be real about the contract that we establish with ourselves. You see, there is a sub-spiritual law that is called the law of gender. And the law of gender says that there is a male energy, and it implants inside of the female energy a seed. And then that seed has to have an opportunity to grow. And we call that the gestation period. The gestation period for a human is around 9 to 10 months. For a horse, it's 12 days. But I wonder what the gestation period is for the seeds that we're putting in our own consciousness. So think of it like this, Bishop. Our words, our thoughts, what our conscious mind comes up with, that is male energy. The subconscious receives, that is female energy. So we take the words we say, the programming we have, the thoughts that we carry, the paradigms that we've been exposed to, and we plant them in our subconscious mind. Have you ever seen a woman that didn't look pregnant? And she says, oh, I'm expecting, but you don't even see it because she's not showing yet. So we need to be real about the fact that the seeds that we plant inside of our subconscious mind, they will gestate. They will come to be. So that is why the leadership team of the BYOB movement is so aggressive when we hear the word confuse, to shift it. when we hear people saying but and shifting, when we hear talking about what they're failing or what they're not doing or struggle or any of those heavy energy words, we know how important this is. So we make a deliberate effort to make sure that we plant inside of our subconscious mind those seeds of victory, those seeds of what we can do, those seeds of what we will do. It is so masterful that every single call we ever do, we start off with affirmations. Say it, type it, believe it, because we know that we're literally taking our male energy, planting it in the female energy of the subconscious, and it will gestate and it will manifest in what we want. Financially educating and impacting 1 million families.
Yes. How about that, Mr. Rogers? Are you there, Mr. Rogers? Or you get some Cafe du Monde also? I see somebody, somebody enjoying their Louisiana coffee. Is that you want to add on to that?
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. Bythewood is so on point and on target. And as you see, we have literally been taught for, I mean, you think about 20 plus years or however long that it's been that, you know, until you get out into the world on your own. So you've been taught from the time of your surroundings, your upbringing. This is what you've been taught. And so subconsciously, you don't even realize what's planted inside of you. So as Dr. Bythewood just stated about the you know, us being deliberate and intentional in what we're doing. So, and you also have to be deliberate. You have to be intentional. You have, if you say you want something, you have to want it. If you say you're going to get something, then you have to be willing to do what's required to get it, because you have to break that stronghold. You have to shift that mindset. Those are things that have to transpire, have to shift. And so one of the things that I share all the time, and, you know, just from the reading and development, that, you know, one of the things that I share is the fact that you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. And so when you understand that, you have to be intentional, deliberate about that shift, that mindset shift about what you want, about what you're feeding yourself, about affirmations. I mean, before we even look at a trade, before we do anything, we are shifting our mindset. We are speaking life over it, because all of us come from different backgrounds. And one thing I can say is, you know, even because in the book, in the acknowledgments, you'll kind of see who I am, and you'll understand it a little bit. But our environments create us. And the one thing I can definitely appreciate my mother for is because what she always told me is that my environment didn't dictate my reality. So if I'm looking at what, you know, my grandparents, what my mother being terminally ill, what she went through, you know, you're supposed to be what, quote unquote, a statistic. You're supposed to, you know, the things that society tells you that this is what's going to be your life. And so you have to be intentional about a shift. So if you want something more, you want something greater, you want something bigger, then you have to be intentional about that shift. And so we're here to help facilitate that process, but you have to bring that desire to the table as well. And I think we got Mr. Rogers back on.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, yeah. You know, one of the things that impression that's put on us by our parents. I thought about my daddy. You know, he had a cash business. He was a moonshiner, and of course, he didn't take a check. And so we want to talk about that, because what happens is he had a big wad of money, and he would say, "Listen, boy, every morning somebody gets up, they want to figure out a way to get what's in your pocket out of your pocket and into their pocket." And I always thought about that when I'm sitting up doing deals with guys. I understand that I have something that they want to exchange to get into their pocket. They want to get what I have in my pocket in their pocket. I take that with me every day, that I try to keep my pockets tight. And so, you know, that was an impression that was made upon me. And those things impact how you treat people when you're sitting at the conference table. It makes an impression on your behavior, and so we have to understand where those behaviors are coming from, If they're good, then we follow them. But if they're causing us to lag behind, then we have to make adjustments. Mr. Rogers, you had something to say about that sabotage before we move forward?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that for me personally, I was extremely fortunate. Uh, and I can remember the foundation that was given to me by my mother and father. My dad used to tell me, I'm like 5 or 6 years old. I'll never forget these conversations. He said, my responsibility is to raise you to be a man. And then we can be friends along the way. That's extra. But I'm going to teach you how to think. And you need to be prepared when you make decisions, able to deal with the consequences, good, bad, and different. And I know one of the things that it was paramount in my household was he always had me on the merit program, meaning that I had to earn the right. And that was just a part of what created the work ethic that I've evolved to and continually evolved to. I never felt like anyone owed me anything. I was never concerned about anything external. I always believed in what my father instilled in me was that no matter when I showed up, I was going to always outperform and outwork anyone around the table. And that's one of the things that when we're talking about programming, that was a part of my program. And then, at that time, my pursuit of athletics, you know, I knew that my stature was challenged, but that did not prevent me. So I worked hard. I worked. So I think work ethic is also too a part of that programming where, from a cultural standpoint, the scripture declares if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. And so, and then we got to be in a position now to take personal ownership of our personal households, our personal. I just believe that, even with seemingly challenging situations, I come from a place, Tampa, Florida, where my grandmother lived in the same project building for 40 years. But that environment never became my reality because I had an opportunity no matter where I come from. And I just personally believe that. So I think being able to erase no matter what the media is broadcasting, no matter what these stereotypes are, I just believe that we do have a choice whether or not to adhere to that or subscribe to it. And if we're long as we're taking personal ownership of our own personal outcomes and instilling the work ethic, then we can be and design to create what we have to be. And I think about often, I'm an avid sports fan, but I can remember being a coach. And why is it that the stadiums are always filled on Saturdays? The gymnasiums are always filled on Saturdays. And we're talking about, we say we're going to keep it real and 100. That's always been the dynamic of the African American community. As long as we can entertain and perform, then we've always been excited about that. And it's unfortunate that many parents push their kids in that direction so that the kids can end up growing up and taking care of the parents. And I just don't believe that's what the scripture declares. It says a good man shall leave an inheritance to his children's children. In some kind of way, we've allowed that narrative to become our reality. So that's pretty much why we have to eliminate that thought process and pluck it up from the root.
May I please add to that? So, it's definitely amen on all of that. So I want us to think about something. The subconscious mind is invisible. We do not see it. And let's add to that perspective the fact that we are the only person that has never seen our face. Yes, you may have seen a reflection, but you've never seen your face because your perspective is from the inside out and everyone else's perspective is from the outside in. So when we talk about self-sabotage, we need to own the fact that those things that we sabotage the most, those programs that do the most damage, those paradigms that cause the most destruction, we do not see them. Because when we analyze, when we decide, when we choose, we do all of that with our conscious mind. So understanding that the subconscious is invisible, we have to do some of the things that have been talked about on this call. We have to choose to develop ourselves. We have to choose to open our minds up. We have to choose to be exposed to things that are going to be positive. Because literally, the self-sabotage occurs because we don't see it. I'm going to give you a real life example snatched from the headlines of my life. I remember I was dating a young lady, and I told her that everything she cooked was so good. Man, you can cook. Oh man, your food just has this energy of it. I can taste the love. And I wasn't talking, it really was good. But she would always say to me, you hate my cooking. She would always say to me, why do I have to cook extra stuff? Because you don't like what I eat. And it did not even match the words that I was saying. But sometime later, she began to tell the story of her siblings and parents who would make her cook and would always talk about how bad it was. And then she began to talk about a husband she had that would always talk about how bad her food was. So even though I was saying your food is good, the programming was so strong that she did not even see it. So all I'm saying to you is this: there's only one way to get rid of a negative belief, and that is to replace it with a new one. So oftentimes we have to stay on our knees. We have to stay in that word. We have to continue to expose ourselves around the most positive energy we can be in. We need to read books like Hidden in Plain Sight. We need to plug in on calls where people are using positive energy, because eventually the programming gets replaced by all of these tangible positive vibrations. Because how can we possibly address what is invisible to us?
That's true. That's a great word, Dr. Bywood. And I just started thinking about the environment that my parents were able to create. But we thought that we were wealthy when we were just like everybody else in the neighborhood. I can remember I just got this brand new 10-speed bicycle and that was something else back in the 70s. You had one of those. And so my mom said, well, where's your bicycle? I said, I gave it to those poor kids down the street. She said, what? She said, what? Because I always thought, if God had plenty more, whatever I had, I can get some more of it, And so, and that's just been my nature. I just give. And so God always gives me back to me. And so, that's the way of the wealth, the wealthy environment that we create in our homes. The concept of lack and stingy and having to reserve is a negative when we think, because when we get ready to trade, we're scared to take the trade because we think we're gonna lose everything, and so you can't enter to this environment fearful like that. You got to recognize that God has an abundance for us, and we have to walk in abundance. We have to behave like in abundance. So that's why I always tell people I'm anointed for wealth. Whatever I have, I'm gonna have some more tomorrow, the next day. If I lose it, I'm gonna have some more real soon because I know how to get it, and I know it comes from God. And so I think that environment that I grew up in set that mindset in me that you always have enough. My dad used to tell us, if you got one cookie, you got enough to share, because you can break it in half and share with your brother and your sister. And so, and I remember my older brother getting a whooping for that because he wouldn't even want to share his cookie. He would take that cookie and breathe on it so we wouldn't want any of the cookie. And so, he's, because he wanted us to have the mind to give and to share with people. And so I think that environment plays a lot that we create in our homes it plays a big part in what we do. And so a lot of times now, when it shifted a little bit, you guys talked about in order to soar, we got to have some kind of resistance. There's always going to be some resistance. The enemy is going to create resistance to try to discourage us. You know, it says, don't be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. Well, to walk in unbelief, you had to believe at one time and something happened that caused you not to no longer believe. And so that resistance is designed to cause us to quit and to give up on our faith in that which we believe, to give up on our belief. And so I thought there was a dynamic couple of paragraphs that talked about the concept of resistance. Because there's going to be some resistance when you're trying to do good. There's always something going to happen to cause you to be distracted or to change your mind. And you got to be able to push past that. You got to be able to push past this. As Ms. Dyer say every morning at 5 o'clock, we got to push past that resistance line, because on the other side of that resistance line is success or something better, something good. Is that what you say, Ms. Dyer? Did I make that up?
No, you didn't make that up. That's the reality. And I mean, when I hear you talk and you think about our environments, I mean, you think about the things that we're taught about, oh, you need to be safe, or, you know, don't take too much risk and put your money in the savings account, and, you know, all of the things, because it's like they mean well. You know, our families mean well, that their heart is in the right space, but you don't know what you don't know. And so if you look at success that leaves clues, it's always the only difference between the people who obtain the things that they desire out of life and the people who don't is the willingness to push forward, because we all have opportunity. It's all there for us. But if you just want to sit back and not do anything, or you want to wait until the right time, or all of those things, I mean, let's look at the world we live in right now. You cannot prepare for life. Life is going to happen. So one of the things that, you know, you're saying what things I say, you have to happen to life, and don't allow life to happen to you. You always have to be prepared. So you have individuals right now who are completely economically unbothered. And the reason they're economically unbothered in the midst of the worst pandemic out there, you know, when we think about COVID, we think about what happened this year, how we talk about 2020 is our year, right? When we think about what we talk about at the beginning of the year, 2020 is our year. Well, guess what? 2020 has been the best year that I've had. It's been one of the best years because of your focus, because of your intention, because of you being able to push through resistance. So why is it that individuals come out of these types of situations and they elevate? Why is it that people come out of these types of situations and they push through? Why is it that billionaires that are created and people are obtaining wealth even in this environment? Why did the market continue to increase? Because the currency is still flowing. It's all about your perspective. And if you ball up in a corner and you start going, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, or are you going to take a hold of your life and actually push through? So you cannot just sit back and wait. That resistance, there's something great on the other side of it. And how you react to it is what's going to happen and where you're going to go. If you look back at your life, you have choices. And we all have to be able to take responsibility for the choices that we make. We have to be adults enough to take responsibility. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes me anything. Nobody owes anybody anything. We have to make a decision on what we want. And are you willing to get up and push through and go get it? Because you had, like was said, this year, people are coming out on top. But if you're not coming out on top, then you need to really step back and evaluate what happened when you hit that resistance.
Resistance. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And really what we focus on will develop. What we focus on will develop. So it's in that realm, as we think about 1 Corinthians 16:9, it says, we have an effectual door of utterance, but it's going to be much room in opposition. That resistance is designed to ensure that you are serious about what you say you desire, right? Because thinking not strange, all of our brethren around the world are experiencing the same fiery trials. But after you've suffered a while, God will of all comfort will strengthen and settle you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
In order for that container to be filled, it has to be stretched. So the more you're willing to be stretched, the more you endure that resistance, then that's going to allow you to expand your capacity to create and be the forerunner of what ultimately we desire to do. I mean, we are already operating from a position of victory because for those who are in Christ and for those who are not in Christ, you got an opportunity to receive that manifold grace by accepting what was already done before the foundations of the earth. But who are we? We are simply the sum total of the thoughts that we think about. And that environment that we're around, as Dr. Bythewood and Ms. Dow have already alluded, the higher the vibrations, the energy that we're around is going to allow us to endure the resistance, because when you're in an environment where nobody's going to be a participant at your party of sympathy, we're here to blow out your candles. But when we blow out your candles, we're going to pull you to a new place. So we're not going to leave you hanging, because iron sharpeneth iron. So we have to have conflict so that can be a conversion. Yeah, we have to have conflict so that can be a conversion. And sometimes we have to confront the old thoughts and be able to discard them so that we can now be laden with new thoughts.
Well, that's wonderful. I just thought about when we would go to the gym and work out, the environment on the football team was of such that you would go beyond what you would normally do if you were trying to work out by yourself.
Absolutely.
Because your workout is no better than that last rep you're able to push out, and your boys standing around you. Come on, man! Come on! And that environment to push through that resistance causes you to get stronger and to be more positive about what it is that you're doing. And so when we get on the treadmill, the resistance makes us stronger. It causes us to be able to breathe. And so resistance is good. We don't run from resistance. We face it head on and we endure it, because we know at the next level is something great.
And just to add to that, Bishop, you think about, you talking about the gym. That's a good example, right? That's the perfect example, because most of us are taught and conditioned to work out. We're taught and conditioned, and we know what happens. In order for your muscles to strengthen, in order for us to get the strength and the development that we're looking for, our muscles have to rip. They have to be torn down. And I cannot gain muscle if it's not ripped. And so that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you quit when that happens, I'm too sore to get up and go the next day. Most people, because you're determined and you're focused, I'm ready. I want to get up. I'm going to the gym. I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Oh, I'm sore. I can't walk, but I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to push through. That's the same way you have to look at the resistance in life. Because in order for us to have something great, we're going to get ripped down. You're going to get torn. It's going to happen. But you have to be willing to push through. You have to be, so it's so intentional. And just like you just mentioned, you have to surround, even with football, like you're talking about football and working out with the group, you have to surround yourself by positive people that are going in the same direction. Because you're not going to sit there and work out with someone that's just sitting there watching you do it. Somebody that doesn't want it, you're going to surround, you're going to tell them, don't show up. So why do we keep those people in our lives? Why do we keep those people in our ears as far as feeding us? When we want more, they cannot be the ones to feed us. They cannot be the ones to encourage us, because it's not going to happen. You have to surround yourself with people that are willing to push through with you.
So there's a pot that I just used to cook, and it's layered with all types of muck. I was taught to soak the pot before you wash it. While that pot is soaking, all of that gunk that was caked up over time through the cooking process rises to the top. And when all of that gunk rises to the top, it's easier to clean. Well, that's what happens when we go through resistance. All of this gunk that was layered in our lifetime begins to show up. It begins to come up to the surface. But if we flip the way we look at it and recognize how wonderfully crafted God has navigated this, when you have a desire, when you make a decision, when you set a goal, when you decide to elevate, God loves us enough to send every single component of our life that is in the way of us getting there and shows it to us. So we call it resistance. But what it really is what my business partners have been saying over the last 8 minutes. It literally is the expansion and the growth that you need in order to get there. Our pots will be clean because we're allowing all this gunk to come to the surface. It is, in fact, it is an indicator that we're growing, that we have resistance. If you're living a life right now with zero resistance, you're about to stay the same. So we welcome the resistance because we know that is where our breakthrough comes from.
Amen, amen. And we got just a few more minutes left, Ms. Tasha. You're a timekeeper. I want to talk about that rollback, Dr. Backwood, because that reminded me of growing up in South Carolina. You know, there's a lot of hills and stuff in South Carolina, and I had my brother had a Volkswagen that I'm the middle child. My brother's 4 years older than me, and I always got past his hand-me-down cars. So he had a Volkswagen. That Volkswagen was passed down to me in when I was in the 9th grade, and it was a stick shift. And when you have to stop on those hills and start off, you know, sometimes if you didn't handle the clutch right, it would roll back a little bit on you, and so you have to pull forward. And that was kind of like one of the examples that you used when you talked about rollback. So what was you trying to help me understand in terms of rollback?
So what I noticed, and I guess we just gave away the writer of that chapter. So what I noticed, as I was traveling through those hills was that the steeper the hill, the more the rock back. So literally, it is consistent with what has been said this entire radio program. The higher you're going, the more the elevation, the bigger the breakthrough, the higher the wealth and abundance level that you're about to reach, the bigger the rock back. It is the expansion and growth that is necessary for me to get there. Those little hills started becoming easy. But those big hills, I had to be very deliberate to make sure that I put that stick shift in the correct gear. So we welcome all of these rockbacks because it makes us be deliberate. Like Ms. Dyer said about 2020, 2020 made us be deliberate. We had to be deliberate about becoming economically unbothered. A 3-week election is making us be deliberate about being economically unbothered. So that's the key right there, Bishop. The higher the hill, the steeper the incline, the bigger the gain, the more the rock back.
Yes, and the more and the rock back represents the incline represents resistance, because the car has to overcome the resistance of the elevation. And so, you know, it's all of our goal to move higher and higher.
Yes.
Economically,
Yes.
and spiritually. And you know, the thing about the pyramid is there are a lot of folk at the bottom, but the higher you get, the fewer folk up that you have access to help you when you are headed to the top. And so that means that you have to prepare for that loneliness of being by yourself. And the thing about it is, when I was dirt poor, a lot of my friends could help me pay my bills if I got in the tight. But when I started making $900,000, $700,000 a year, the bills I had that came with that money and the responsibilities I had that came with that money, there's very few people I could call to help to get my payroll from when things were slow, because of the resistance that are going to the top of the pyramid. And so the resistance is good because it develops your muscle memory that you need when times are difficult, because very few people you can talk to that will understand. Thank you, Ms. Dyer. Very few people you can talk to that can understand where you are, that can't relate. I didn't know that I was operating in that 5%, Mr. Rogers. I didn't know that the very few people make over $400,000 a year. And there I was making 800,000 for 7, 8 years. I didn't know that. I was just operating. I was just doing what I do, the way I do it. And I was, being myself. But I didn't understand the level, the elevation. And sometimes it's that way when you're elevating, you're in the clouds and you don't even recognize how high you are.
Well, that's awesome. And that's a good thing, because that's the environment. So what we want to do is be intentional about shifting that environment. We want to be intentional about everyone being able to do that. And one of the things that, because I know it's time and we'll be back on here next week, but one of the things I definitely want us to be able to highlight is that in order to see, you want to go to our website, BeYourOwnBankMovement.com. You definitely want to visit us there, check out our book, but also you be able to join us this evening also, so you can really get a taste of BYOB Market Talks, followed by a talk with the finance doctor. And that's at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So go on to that live session and you will be able to join us through Zoom on that tab that says live, that where you go live in the market on our website, BeYourOwnBankMovement.com. And also make sure you get your book, right? Order your book, but you want to give the gift that just keeps on giving, because we're shifting and we're being intentional about this mindset shift. We're being so intentional. And today we discussed this. Today we went deep into one of the chapters, but we're so intentional about this shift and this trend, what is actually manifesting and what's happening. And so you want to be able to give that gift, because the way 1 million families financially educated and impacted, and that really begins with you. And so just imagine what's going to shift right then and there. So with that being said, I know we're at our time, so I definitely want to end there. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to turn this back over, Bishop, so you can close out.
I think you already closed out, Ms. Dyer, and you did a great job. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from everybody on next Tuesday at 5 o'clock on the Rejoice 904.com. Come and be a part. Join us on all of our opportunities that we give on the website. God bless you. And we look forward to hearing from you real soon. We look forward to you joining. We want you to join the BYOB network. We want you to be a part of what we're doing. We want to teach you so that we won't have to go to the top by ourselves, but we can take some of you with us. It's good to be at the top with your friends. God bless you.